If a normal hatchback is a little bit too dull, don't worry, there are some more interesting alternatives. The MINI Countryman, Alfa Giulietta, Citroen DS4 and the Nissan Juke. But which of these four cars manages to stand out from the crowd with the fewest compromises? In part 1 of our video, we compared their driving dynamics, but now in part 2, it's time to get pragmatic and compare them for costs and practicality. Owning a Mini used to be a bit of a compromise due to its limited practicality, but the Countryman opens up the brand to a whole new audience. Because while it unquestionably looks like a Mini, the fact that it's got a bigger body and some rather useful rear doors means that you no longer have to be a contortionist to get into the back. And once inside, there's even enough room for adults. Look, headroom's pretty decent, and you can recline the rear seats, which is handy. You can even move them forward for more boot space or backwards for more leg room. Practicality isn't so great in the front of the Countryman though. There are few storage spaces, the door bins are tight and the cup holders won't hold the grandest of grande lattes. As for luggage space, while the boot is a reasonable 350 litres, unfortunately you could say it's as awkward as the Countryman's exterior design. And while the rear seats do fold completely flat, you get a massive lip, which you can only get rid of by paying extra for a false boot floor. The Alfa's boot is the same size as the Mini's, but a far more useful shape. However, like the Countryman, there's an annoying lip when you fold the seats down. What's more, they don't even lie flat. The Giulietta's usability doesn't get much better in the front either. If you open the glove box, if you've got a passenger sat there, it's going to chafe their knee. Also for the driver, the centre console rubs against your shin. The side door bins, well, they're only really big enough to hold credit cards. And don't get me started about the stereo Bluetooth or sat-nav system, otherwise I'm going to start to get really very cross. And my rant isn't over there either, because if you jack up the seat, unless you're really small, your head's going to start touching the ceiling. And if you follow me into the back, you'll see life is no better for rear passengers. I mean, look, there's absolutely no headroom. It's as if Alfa is doing their best to put you off this car. But when you get out, look back and see just how beautiful the Giulietta is, as if by magic, all those niggles are suddenly forgotten. Sadly for the oddball Juke, it doesn't have the luxury of this get out of jail free card. At 250 litres, the boot is the smallest here. However, there is a false floor, and unlike those Minis at Mini, Nissan don't charge extra for it. But while the rear seats may fold flat, the carrying capacity doesn't live up to the chunky dimensions. Thankfully, things are better in the front, due to a deep glove box and door bins which are large enough to hold bottles. Factor in the handy cup holders and there's no risk of anyone going thirsty. Where the Juke falls down is passenger space, because it's actually less roomy in the back than your average Super Mini. For starters, those small rear doors don't make it all that easy to get in, and once in place, well, it's a little bit pokey. If you notice, that sloping roofline means my head, look, I mean, it's touching the ceiling. And overall that means it's not that great for adults back here. You might think that being larger, the DS4 would fare better than the Nissan in this respect, but somehow the French have managed to cock this up. There is a price to pay for that cool rear window design, because when you open the door, you have to be careful not to spear yourself on that bit. And it does mean opening it in tight spaces will be a bit difficult. Then there's this rear pillar which kind of gets in the way. And to get in, you've got to kind of imagine that you're wearing a mini skirt. You have to keep it all dignified. Before you ask, no, I've never worn a mini skirt. Anyway, once you're inside, headroom is reasonable, but knee room, it's more limited than on a normal small family hatchback. But the worst thing of all is this. The rear windows, they don't wind down. And that is just really annoying. At least the boot is the biggest here, with 385 litres of space, though that base tube does somewhat get in the way. Oh, and the rear seats, they don't fold completely flat either. Practicality up front is much better though. There's various cubbies dotted about the place to store your bits and bobs, and the side door bins are big enough to hold large bottles. If you like to meddle, you can change the colour of the instrument and the dials, but my favourite thing is this. Citroen's Zenith windscreen. Right then, let's get back to the scoreboard to mark the cost for practicality. Once again, it's the Nissan that's last with 1 point. The Citroen gets 2, the Alfa 3, and the Mini gets 4. Finally, it's time to compare the costs. The Citroen is the most expensive here as it starts at 18 grand. At least equipment is generous and it feels at market inside. Shame it won't hold its value that well come resale. This is also a problem with the Giulietta, and while its entry price is 500 quid less than the DS4's, the quality, nor standard equipment, is quite so good. It's better than the Countryman's though, however the £16,000 starting price and residual values of up to 51% after 3 years more than make up for this. After the Mini, the Juke has the second best depreciation, and with the range kicking off at £13,295, it's also the cheapest. Sadly, it feels this inside, and beware, the most economical model only does 55 miles per gallon compared to 64 miles per gallon for the other 3 cars. When taking all this into account, plus insurance and maintenance bills, the score for costs are 1 for the Alfa, 2 for the Citroen, 3 for the Mini, and the Nissan gets 4. And when we tot up the scores, we get this final ranking. The Nissan comes last with 6 out of 12, the Alfa third with 7 out of 12, the Citroen second with 8 out of 12, and the Mini gets 9 out of 12, which means it's the best choice if you want a hatchback that stands out from the crowd.